You know, I'm still internalizing that story from Sanjay, and I think it bears repeating. You have the power to affect families' lives. More so than any other industry, more so than any other sales professionals that I work with. And I think that it's important that you take that lesson away. I want you to think for just a second back to your very first day in the business. Mine was June 19th, 1992. I had spent 6 weeks at our corporate headquarters. I was a Tide agent at the time, learning everything that there was about the financial services product that we had. And I sat at my brand new desk. I had my rate cards to the left of me. I had my contacts all to the right in front of the phone. And I spent my days making calls. My goal was 3 meetings a day. And I would talk to whoever would listen. I called my family. I called my friends. I kept a stash of forms, contracts in my bag. I had a really fancy gold pen because I was taught you put the pen on the form and you slide it across the table. And you wait for that customer to pick up the pen and to take action. And 6 months, so December 31st, 1992, I had exactly 0 to show for it. You know, I was 22 years old and I was laughing back there because I said to myself, my God, I was the anti-Sanjay. At 23, he's at the top of the table, and at 22, I was $12,000 in debt. Because I was paid $2,000 commission, a draw against commission, whether I sold anything or not. And I had sold exactly 2 policies. One to myself, and one to my dad. And, you've been there. You know, I was barely making enough money to pay for the $50 a month premium on my 20-pay life. And of course, I got hauled into my manager's office, and I got put on a performance improvement plan. Now, I was lucky enough that Greg, my manager at the time, saw something in me that I didn't see because my confidence was shot. What I discovered, when you're $12,000 in debt and failing at your job, you become a miserable, bitter person. Of course, it wasn't my fault, right? I blamed my customers because they were too stupid to see the value that I had to offer. I blamed my city for having citizens that were too idiotic to buy our products. I blamed my company for having terrible products that no one wanted to buy. And I blamed my family, including my ex-husband, because they didn't see that I could do this business. So Greg looked at me and he said, you know, Colleen, we have to teach you how to sell. Now, you guys have all been 21 before, and you know that it takes a massive amount of self-restraint to withhold what you really want to say. And I mustered up every ounce of self-restraint that I had not to look at him and say, well, duh. Like, look at where it got you the first time. And he grabbed me by the hand and he took me down the hall and he introduced me to Fred. So Fred was the agent in our office that people didn't know much about, except that he was the most successful rep in the office. That $12,000 debt that I had amassed in 6 months, Fred was earning in a week. And he was doing it over 30 hours. He was only working 30 hours a week because Fred was actually a cattle rancher in Edmonton, Alberta, where I worked, and he was spending the rest of his time in the field with his cows. So while I wasn't having success in the business, I was smart enough to look at Fred and say, okay, if you can do it, I can do it. And I went out and made sales calls with Fred. And you know, after about 3 or 4 calls, I noticed something very interesting that I had to ask him about. I said, Fred, we're in all these meetings with prospects, and you're not trying to sell anything. You don't have any contracts in your bag. You're not carrying your rate card with you. You don't have any promotional material. What's going on? And Fred taught me the first of a very powerful series of lessons, and that is the relationship is more profitable than the sale. So Fred got me out of a jam. We paid back that $12,000 in debts because I made some sales. I won some sales awards. And while he didn't inspire me to stay in the business long enough to be an MDRT member, he did teach me one other powerful business lesson that has stayed with me throughout my career. And that is this: the power of a mentor is the fastest way for you to guarantee success, But it's also the only way that you can ensure that success is lasting. So whether you choose a reverse mentor, as Jack had suggested, or a mentor who's been in the business for a long time, make sure you find somebody whose business you admire, whose life you admire, and learn from them in order to be a success.